Hello, and welcome to the Inner Bully Beatdown podcast. I am your host, Brittany Fowler. I am also the author of the book, Inner Bully Beatdown. I am also a breakthrough mentor and motivational speaker. So if you would like me to come speak to you, please visit my website at brittanyfowler.com. Enjoy this podcast. Hello. Oh my goodness. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've posted the podcast, and I want to thank you for sticking with me. Oh my gosh, I've been traveling so much lately. We had a family vacation. We went to Legoland with my kids, and they absolutely loved it. You know, if you go to Legoland, I think my very favorite part was searching for Mr. Gold and also exchanging the mini figurine characters. And it was just a fun, happy place, and there wasn't a lot of crowds there. We went this past week, and school is not out yet in California, and so it wasn't very busy, and it was just lots of fun. So anyway, I had a great time, and it was a much needed break from the to-dos of life. So today we are talking about worth versus value, and I posted this online to my people, and I asked them, what's the difference between worth and value? And I got the answers that I was expecting. Worth is something that we have, and value is what somebody else places upon us. But I want to take it a step further and kind of broaden your view of these two words, worth and value, that they're actually not separate. They're actually connected, and they actually can change the way you interact with people. Let's talk about worth and value. First, let's talk about value, because when I was on vacation, it's in California, and we lived in California for a couple of years before we had kids. And I just remember being like, I never want to raise a family here because it's so darn expensive. Because even for us, just a couple, we had a 1-bedroom, 500 square feet apartment for, $1,100 a month. And I just... it was just so darn expensive. But what made it so expensive? That same size of real estate in a different location would have been cheaper. What determines value? In real estate, well, it's location, size, maybe the quality of materials that something is made out of. Clothes are the same way. More expensive clothes usually have higher quality materials. So value is very determinant upon time, location, and condition. Because real estate, that can fluctuate with time. Market's hot. Oh, market's cold. Oh, it's a buyer's market. Oh, it's a seller's market. Right? So value is very determinant upon time, location, and condition. But worth is inherent. It's not determinate. It's inherent. It's something that we have and we can develop over time. It's something we can lose or misplace, but it's something that it is like an inalienable right, kind of like life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Worth is a right that we have to claim. We can claim our worth. But what's interesting is that a lot of people focus on, how do you find your worth? How do you go about, having it? And it's interesting that you don't have to search for it. Like in my viewpoint, worth is something that you have. You just have to remember that you have it. It's not something that you find in a box or find on the clothes rack or, find in the car. It's not something you find just one day it magically appears. It's something that you remember. Because I believe that before we lived here on this earth, that we had worth already. And we came to earth and we continue to have worth. But we forgot. We forgot that we have it. And I think as women, too, we forget our worth. It's not that we lose it. It's just that we forget it. People will ask a lot of questions. Well, how do you find it? How do you have it? How do you use it? Well, I would say, how do you be it? How do you be your worth? Well, that's an interesting question, because how do you be happy? How do you be joyful? How do you be grumpy? How do you be emotions? Well, you choose them, right? Worth is the exact same way. You choose worth. You choose that you are. And you may not believe it at first because your inner bullies go, no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't have any worth. You're not worth that. Look at your past mistakes. Look at everything that's going wrong. Look at what's your fault, right? They want you to feel these low vibrational emotions of guilt, shame, and frustration and anger and all these things. But inherently, you have worth. And how do you be that? How do you show that? What is the benefit of knowing that you have worth? What is the benefit of remembering that you have worth? In my mind, it changes you. When you go from hoping that you have worth to believing that you have worth to knowing that you have worth. This whole process of getting to that point where you remember it to its full extent, when you know that you are worth more than gold, than rubies, than diamonds, than anything on this earth, when you know that you are worth it, guess what opens up? The door to creating value in other people's lives. When you remember, when you are worth or you be it, okay? You remember that you have abilities to bless other people's lives and create value in their lives. You become resilient to the naysayers. You become more resilient to your inner bullies. You stop beating yourself up, right? But then sometimes you forget that you have worth. And then the inner bullies creep back in. And then, right? So it's kind of a process. It's not that once you know something, sometimes we forget it still, right? Who went to college? I did. Who remembers half of what they learned in college? Maybe me. Even though we knew it at one time, sometimes we forget it unless we practice using it. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And worth is the exact same way. If you don't use it, if you don't use your abilities, if you don't use your worth to connect with other people and create value in their lives, you will forget it. And then you lose it for a time. And then you remember. So this cycle of hoping that you have worth, to believing you might have worth, to knowing you have worth, and then maybe forgetting. It's just the cycle of life, right? It's just the cycle of being human. But what's interesting too is that when you know you have worth, you open yourself up to having connection. So if I believe that I have worth, and I believe that I can create value in other people's lives, guess what? I open myself up to the universe and I say, use me. Use me so that I can bless other people's lives, so that I can create value in other people's lives. The people who have, quote, confidence, just know that they have worth and they have abilities that they can bless other people's lives with. They remember that about themselves. They take time to develop those skills so that they can create more value in other people's lives. So, you see how worth and value are actually connected? Value doesn't give us worth. Having worth gives value. Now, I was driving on Saturday. We had bought something at Ace Hardware, and we had the teller had forgotten to give us our main bag. We had bought Traeger smoking pellets, and because we were gonna do some chicken wings, and we just went out with the bags, but we went out with the pellet bags, but we had forgotten the actual shopping bag. So I went back to get it about an hour later, and on my way, I see this old man, and he was sitting down in one of those walkers where you push it and then you could actually sit. It has a seat, but he was sitting on the side of the road, like almost on the road and on the sidewalk, but he looked like he had passed out. And so I flipped back around and I went back to check on him just to make sure that he was okay. And I said to him, I said, hey, like, how are you? Are you okay? How you doing? And he's like, oh, I just fell asleep. I just get so tired when I go on my walks, and I have to go on. And he just went off. I love elderly people because they love to share their life story with you in 2 minutes. And so he went off And he said, there's just nobody to talk to anymore. So I just have to go on these walks, which broke my heart. And, I read books in the morning, and then I go on this walk, and then I always seem to just fall asleep because I'm so tired. And next week is my 90th birthday on the 13th. And maybe I'll have somebody come visit me, and maybe I'll get a birthday cake. And my heart just sank for him. It made me want to figure out where he lived so that I could bring him a birthday cake. And he continued to say, I lived in 5 countries. I speak 4 languages. And I was it was either the Navy or the Marines. And I kept trying to ask him, what's your name? What's your name? And he kept going off. And it made me think that he maybe had a little bit of dementia or something, because my grandpa is 89, 90 years old. And he's having a hard time himself remembering things. But it made me think and ponder and reflect upon how much I ignore other people. And all people are craving for is connection. And I don't mean to say I don't ignore people on purpose, but I get so focused and I get so busy, and I know you can relate to this. I get so busy on my to-do list that I just forget to connect. And after I had that connection moment with that old man, I just felt like my love cup was 100% full. I felt like, oh my gosh, even though I was just going to make sure he was alive, I felt like I made maybe just the tiniest bit of difference in his day, where somebody would talk to him. And don't we all just crave that? Please, somebody just talk to me. Somebody just connect with me. Somebody just create value, in my lives. Because when you believe you have worth, you can create this value for other people. You can connect with other people easier. Know that you have worth. Know that you can create value in other people's lives because you just have abilities. And your abilities are different than mine. Your abilities are more than others, but weaker in some places, and we're all different, and that's fine. But just because you can't do something else or you don't have a specific ability doesn't mean that you do not have worth and you cannot create value in other people's lives. It does not mean that. But other people would love to have us believe that if we don't look a certain way, if we don't act a certain way, if we don't do something a certain way, then you don't have worth. You can't create value. You're not worth it, right? Low self-esteem. This is what plagues us. Low self-esteem comes from believing you have zero worth and that you can create zero value in other people's lives. I would invite you to write down why you have worth. What are your abilities? How can you step into your worth and create value in other people's lives? I would invite you to explore that and think a little deeper on this topic, because really it is life-changing when you believe that you have self-worth. So have a fabulous day, and we will talk to you later. From the bottom of my heart to yours, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you can't get enough or need more support with terminating your inner bullies, please join us on Facebook at Inner Bully Beatdown Podcast. We hope to see you there. Have a great day.